Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the March 12th meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Education. It is our tradition at the beginning of the meeting to have a moment of silence, so I would ask at this time if we could please have a moment of silence. Thank you very much. At this time, if we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight, our vision statement will be given to us by Board Member Linda Duncan. Ms. Duncan.
Well, our vision is for all Jefferson County Public School students to graduate prepared, empowered, and inspired to reach their full potential and contribute as thoughtful, responsible citizens of our diverse, shared world.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan, very much. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce Tony Cons-Tatman, who will do our recognitions and resolutions. Thank you, Ms. Tony, for being here this evening.
Good evening, Dr. Polio, Board Chair Diane Porter, and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education. This evening, we have the honor of recognizing the outstanding accomplishments of several students, teachers, principals, and schools. We begin tonight with the recognition of Eastern High School teacher Lori Napke, who is named the 2019 Kentucky Music Educators Association High School Teacher of the Year. She is in her 21st year of teaching at Eastern High School, and choirs under her direction have received numerous distinguished ratings at festivals and assessments. This award recognizes her service and contributions to music education. She attended the University of Louisville School of Music, where she earned both her Bachelor of Music and Master of Arts in Teaching degrees. And among her accomplishments, she maintains national board certification and recently became a Google certified educator. She also serves as a supervisor for student teachers from several Kentucky universities. Dr. Polio, Board Member James Craig, Chief Academic Officer Dr. Carmen Coleman, and Executive Administrator of High Schools Chris Perkins, please come forward and extend our congratulations. And joining her is her daughter Olivia, a second grader at Height Elementary. Next, we have the privilege of honoring DuPont Manual High School senior Allison Tu. Allison was recently named a top Kentucky Youth Volunteer of 2019 by the Prudential Spirit of Community Awards, a nationwide program honoring young people for outstanding acts of volunteerism. She earned the award for a youth-driven initiative she launched to raise awareness about student mental health issues and find ways to combat the high rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide among young people in Kentucky. She launched the organization called Stamina, which stands for Student Alliance for Mental Health Innovation and Action. She sought support from student leaders throughout Kentucky, as well as key adults in government, healthcare, and education, and she obtained more than $100,000 in grants to fund her initiative. As a state honoree, Allison will receive $1,000, an engraved silver medallion, and an all-expense-paid trip in early May to Washington, D.C., where she will join the top honorees from each of the other states in the District of Columbia for 4 days of national recognition events. Dr. Polio, Board Chair Diane Porter, Chief of Schools Dr. Devon Horton, and Executive Administrator of High Schools Chris Perkins, please extend our congratulations to Allison. And joining her in the recognition is Manual Principal Daryl Farmer. And if Allison's parents or family members are here, please stand to be recognized. Next, we have the privilege of honoring Louisville Male High School senior Zane Brown. Zane won his third state wrestling championship in a row on February 16th at the Kentucky Horse Park in Lexington. This year, he was the top wrestler in the 160-pound weight class. The past 2 years, he was the state's top wrestler in the 152-pound weight class. Prior to the state tournament, Zane had a career record of 165-8 since joining the male program as an 8th grader, and was a combined 98-2 over the past 3 seasons. He was a state runner-up as an 8th grader and a freshman. Zane is the first wrestler from Louisville to win 3 state titles since 2012. And while at the tournament, Zane was also named or received the 2019 Orville Williams Outstanding Wrestler Award. He will head to Lindsey Wilson College this fall, where he will wrestle and study psychology and hopes to one day go into orthopedics. Dr. Polio, Board Chair Diane Porter, Chief of Schools, Board Member Corey Scholl, and Executive Administrator of High Schools, Chris Perkins, please extend congratulations to Zane. And joining him in the recognition is his coach, who is also a teacher at Chenoweth Elementary School, Chris McCoy. And if any of Zane's parents or family members are here, please stand to be recognized. Next, we have the privilege of honoring Farmer Elementary and Kammerer Middle School students for taking first place honors in the State Junior Beta Club competition. The National Beta Club is the largest independent nonprofit educational youth organization in America. Between Junior Beta, which is grades 4 through 8, and Senior Beta, grades 9 through 12, the organization has helped nearly 7 million students learn how to make a life for themselves, and since '91, it has awarded over $6 million in scholarships. Farmer students David Brady, Maggie Logston, Haley Bolger, Henry Allen, Colton Kroom, Isla Starks, Lucas Selch, and Baben Nepal took first place in the robotics competition. Kammerer students Anya Basemore, Elizabeth Kramer, Piper Von Allman, Linda Tran, and Katie Jane McClellan won first place for the most service hours in the state of Kentucky. First up, we will recognize the farmer students, so Dr. Polio and Board Member Chris Brady, Chief of Schools, Dr. Devon Horton, and Assistant Superintendent Joe Leffert. Please extend our congratulations to the students from Farmer. And joining them in their recognition, their principal Shannon Conlin, and Junior Beta sponsor Wendy House, and robotics coach Jessica Goodman. All right, we'll honor the Kammerer Middle School students, so Dr. Polio and Board Member James Craig, Chief of Schools Dr. Horton, and Executive Administrator of Middle Schools Jessica Rosenthal, please extend our congratulations to these students from Kammerer, and joining them in their recognitions is their principal David Armour and teacher and Beta Club sponsor Terry Breland. And if we have any of these parents of these students from Farmer or Kammerer here in attendance, please stand to be recognized. Next, we have the privilege of honoring Marion C. Moore School head football coach Rob Reeder for being named the Kentucky High School Football Coach of the Year. Reeder took over as the school's football coach in 2017 and was recently named the Courier-Journal's 2018 High School Football Coach of the Year. The Mustangs went 6-5 in Reeder's first year and took a huge leap in 2018, finishing the season at 11-2. The 11 victories matched the school record set in 1980 when the Mustangs went 11-1. The program entered the season with just 4 playoff victories all time and won 2 playoff games this past season, beating West Jessamine and Mercer County before falling to Taylor County in the state playoffs. The award is voted on by high school football coaches across the state. Reeder began coaching as an assistant at DuPont Manual, and he was also an assistant at PRP High School before heading to Moore in 2017. Dr. Polio, Board Member Corey Scholl, Chief of Schools Dr. Horton, and Executive Administrator of High Schools Chris Perkins, please extend our congratulations to Coach Reeder, and joining him in the recognition is his principal, Rob Folk. And if any of Coach Reeder's family is here tonight, please stand to be recognized. We now have the privilege of honoring Kenwood Elementary School for being named a 2019 State School of Character by Character.org for its use of character development to drive a positive impact on academics, student behavior, and school climate. Kenwood is the only school in Kentucky to be honored with this recognition in 2019 and the first JCPS school to ever receive the distinction. Since its inception, Character.org has recognized more than 500 schools with the distinction of State School of Character. And criteria for the designation are based on their 11 principles of effective character education, including providing students with opportunities for moral action, fostering shared leadership, and engaging families and communities as partners in character-building efforts. Dr. Polio, Board Member Linda Duncan, Chief of Schools Dr. Horton, and Executive Administrator of Elementary Schools Chris Deely, please extend our congratulations to Principal Jill Hanley and Assistant Principal Katie Williams. All right, and finally, we have the privilege of honoring Marion C. Moore School head wrestling coach Mike Thomas for being named the 2019 High School Wrestling Coach of the Year. Coach Thomas earned his honor at last month's state wrestling championships in Lexington. It was given to Thomas by the Kentucky Wrestling Coaches Association. He is a 1998 alumni of Moore, where he wrestled and played football for all 4 years. He went to Western Kentucky University to play football and study physical education and earned his degree in 2002. He teaches physical education and health at Moore. He joined the coaching staff at Moore as an assistant in 2002 and took over as the head coach in 2003. He was also voted the Region 4 Coach of the Year in 2017. Dr. Polio, Board Member Corey Scholl, Chief of Schools Dr. Horton, and Executive Administrator of High Schools Chris Perkins, please extend our congratulations to Coach Thomas. And joining in the recognition is his principal, Rob Folk. And if any of Coach Thomas's family is here tonight, please stand to be recognized. Dr. Polio, members of the school board, this concludes our recognitions for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much for providing that information to us. Congratulations to those that have been recognized, to your family that's here and to your family that may not be here, but are proud of you anyway. So I also want to, before I call for the vote to receive the recognitions, I'd like to call your attention to the poster over on the wall. This says Educate, Equip, and Empower. We're not giving an award for that tonight, except I want to verbally thank the students from Ballard High School that made that possible. That was hung at the Kentucky State Board of Education Association, our meeting at the Galt House, and so those students that participated in that, Jaden Johnson, Audrey Schuyler, Lauren Sandifer, Nicole Scott, and Kate Woodhouse. So I'm doing this rogue. I didn't ask anybody's permission, but would you please give them a round of applause? Now I'll get back on script. At this time, is there a motion to receive the recognitions? Board Member Brady, second by Board Member Craig. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We will give a few minutes, maybe 3, maybe 2, for those that have received their recognitions. We thank you, but I know that there are maybe some more pressing things that you would like to do. So at this time, if you would like to leave, please do so quietly from the auditorium. If there are people in the overflow area that want to come in and fill these seats, feel free to do so. Thank you so much, and congratulations for all of your accomplishments. The overflow area that would like to come into the auditorium, we now have some available seats. We will go on with the agenda. The next item is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda this evening? Motion by Board Member Geese, second by Board Member Kolb. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously, and Pastor Schul is not at the table right now, but it passes. He has stepped out of the room for just a second. So thank you so much for that. The next is to recommendations for the approval of the minutes of previous meetings. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the February 26, 2019 work sessions and the February 27th special meeting? Is there a motion? Board Member Geese, seconded by Board Member Brady. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously, and please note that Board Member Schul is not at the table at this moment. Thank you. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our Superintendent, Dr. Marty Polio, for the Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Chair Porter and board members. I bring to you the Superintendent report for March 12th. As is well documented, we have been experiencing challenging times in public education. We felt that in JCPS over the past couple of weeks. I want to reiterate that as a teacher, I clearly understand the critical importance of a highly trained, respected, supported, and compensated teaching staff across the district. I've always said that everyone in the district is either a teacher or someone who supports teachers, and I strongly support our teachers who advocate for our profession and for public education. As a superintendent, at the same time, I also have to do everything possible to ensure that our students are in school receiving the instructions and supports that so many of them need. This is a difficult line to walk, but I'm committed to doing both. So this issue is clearly the most discussed topic currently in our community, and rightfully so. But I do want to highlight the work that we are about to do tonight. I believe this board meeting might be one of the most important and historic board meetings in many years. Jefferson County Public Schools has lamented the state of our facilities for many years. Instead of having a strong plan to comprehensively address the issues, we have instead to continue to kick the can down the road and have our facilities and operations division only have the capacity to put a Band-Aid on the issue by renovating buildings at the rate of about 5 per summer. At this rate, it takes at least 35 years to renovate every building. By that time, buildings are once again due for major renovations. In the meantime, no new innovative buildings are designed and built. I've said multiple times that we continue to be lapped by other cities and other school districts. At the last meeting, I discussed how Fayette County will have opened 10 new buildings in the past decade to our 1. In Cincinnati Public Schools, the district replaced all of their high schools in a 10-year period. Once again, we have built 1 elementary school. Worse, we have neglected new buildings in some of our most economically disadvantaged communities. Tonight is the first time in quite possibly decades that you are about to approve a plan that will build 5 new schools. I use the term 5 because although the Academy at Shawnee is not a new building, it will be a new beginning for the school in an incredible facility. And you know very well my personal feelings for the school and the importance of us righting a wrong from nearly 30 years ago. So this has been a long process and journey we have been on over the past 9 months to bring you this recommendation. And I would like to highlight what we have done in those 9 months. The journey began on July 23rd, 2018. The local planning commission, our required committee to determine facilities renovations and improvements, met for the first time and unanimously approved additions to the district facility plan. On July 24th, 2018, we held a work session here before a board meeting with most of you, we've had a couple join on since, that provided the initial overview of our facilities plan. We highlighted the areas of town we wanted to build and our desire to renovate Shawnee. On August 27th, 2018, after KDE review, the local planning commission met for a second time and unanimously approved the amended district facilities plan to be sent to the board for your approval. On October 16th, 2018, the Board of Education approved the recommended changes to the district facility plan from the local planning commission here during a board meeting. On December 18th, 2018, we held a facilities committee meeting in this room in which we brought specifics to the plan to that committee. During the month of January and February, we held 15 different public meetings or forums in schools or in the community for feedback and input. January 22nd, 2019, we held a facility session during our board retreat to get your input and feedback to the proposal. February 26, 2019, we held another work session to bring you more details and get additional feedback from you concerning the plan. And now here we are on March 12, 2019. We are asking for your approval to the most comprehensive facilities changes that this district has had in one proposal that I would think in our entire history. And I know these have been difficult decisions and discussions for you. You're making tough decisions tonight and have gotten tons of feedback in the past 4 months. I can't reiterate enough that I believe this is only the first step in our journey to bring our facilities, unfortunately, into the 21st century. With your approval, I can't wait to put the shovels in the ground at all of our new schools and welcome students to our brand new facilities and open the doors to the 3rd floor at the Academy at Shawnee. And as I finish, I would like to show you some plaques on walls in some of our schools. So a couple of them. As you can see, this was when Roberta B. Tully School was built in 1977. You can see the Board of Education members that are on the wall, and you probably know some of those. And then you can also see Klondike Elementary. Some of those board members that are highlighted in each of these buildings. And as you can see, we have several schools that are named after those board members because quickly after 1970, we built more schools. We haven't done that much since. And as I look, there's only a few of you that have plaques on any walls across this district with your name on it. With your approval tonight, that will change. And in about 24 months, I would expect to see your names on plaques at least 5 different facilities. I'm excited about the proposal to you and the future of this district, and look forward to the presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Polio. This evening, we have 17 speakers to address the board. 12 speakers on agenda items, and 5 speakers on non-agenda items. The board has adopted a policy that will allow 45 minutes for speakers prior to us moving on to our action item. For those speakers that we are unable to accommodate in that 45 minutes, you still will have an opportunity to speak, but it will be after we conduct the business of the meeting. I am hopeful that we can do 17 speakers within 45 minutes, but if you do the math, 17 times 3 is 51. Unless someone does not take their entire time, we may have to go to the process of asking that you will stay until after we finish the work of the board. So before I start calling the speakers, I would like to go over the policy with everyone this evening. In accordance with board policy 1.421, the board expects that persons who have signed up to address the board will limit their remarks to the subject that they have listed at the time they signed up, that their presentation will not include any abusive remarks about that subject, and that they will present their remarks in a manner that is consistent with the orderly conduct of the meeting. Also, in accordance with board policy, the board reserves the right to limit, extend, or terminate discussion on any subject. Discussion of personnel matters is not permitted, as the board has no legal authority regarding such matters, and such discussion is not appropriate. Personnel matters are within the authority of the superintendent. If a speaker begins to discuss a personnel matter, the chair shall immediately terminate the speaker's remarks. A speaker may not initiate charges or complaints against an individual district employee. Discussion of a district employee by name or position is not permitted in order to ensure confidentiality and fairness for the employee. If a person discusses a district employee by name or position in their remarks to the board, the chair shall immediately terminate the speaker's remarks. Speakers before the entire board are not allowed to use props, displays, or other objects during the presentations. However, informational handouts may be given to the assistant secretary to the board, who is sitting right there, for distribution to or following the meeting. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes to address the board and may not share these minutes with any other speaker. At the end of 2.5 minutes, a bell will sound once. You will then have 30 seconds to finish your statement. At the end of 3 minutes, the bell will sound twice, indicating that your time is up. The superintendent will look into the speaker's issues and, if necessary, represent the board in following up or recommend action to the board. Board Policy 1.45 establishes that persons speaking regarding items on the board agenda shall be permitted to do so prior to persons speaking regarding non-agenda items. A maximum of 45 minutes shall be allocated for speakers immediately after the superintendent's report. Speakers who were unable to be accommodated due to the time limitation may address the board later in the meeting, immediately after the board reports. The full board policy concerning public participation in open meetings is available for viewing on our website and at our sign-in sheet. So having said that, I will start with our list of speakers, starting with those who are speaking on agenda items. And this, the speakers for this particular section are speakers about the recommendation for approval to adopt the District Facilities Transformation Initiative. The first speaker is Kamar Rashad. Welcome, sir. Thank you for being here this evening. And after Mr. Rashad, just so I can try to keep it going as quickly as possible, the next speaker will be David Horton. Press the button right at the bottom.
I'm on. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Kumar Rashad. I'm a math teacher at Breck Metro. Last month I spoke to you about the merger between my school and Minor Daniels, and like so many others, we're gracious that you, the board, decided to postpone that decision. I am hopeful, however, that we will completely eliminate that course of action altogether, because I do not believe that schools should be merged, especially when these schools are mostly black, mostly free and reduced, mostly left with little voice and no representation. I'm also on the Racial Equity Plan Committee for JCPS, but I'm speaking as an individual. I would have loved to be speaking as a representative from that committee, but I can't because the facilities plan never presented this to us as a group. If they had, I would have told them that the measures that they're using is not equitable. Increasing class sizes for free and reduced students is not equitable. We need more space, not more people. Matter of fact, this is downright racist. We would never, ever do this to the East End schools or majority schools who are not free and reduced lunch because it wouldn't work. And because it is easy to bully our vulnerable population because parent voice is not as high and Black lives are continually shown that they don't matter. It amazes me that people who make decisions are not the ones who would do the work or who would want their kids, grandkids, to go to these merged poor schools. Those schools are more dangerous, have less learning in the logistics for JCPS to have this completed within 4 months. Impossible, man. JCPS has continually shown poor leadership when merging schools. Look at the failure called Minor Daniels, epic failure. Teachers get beat up, cursed out every day, still to this day. Or Stewart Frost merger, where the turnover rate is one of the worst in the state. You can't throw all your black kids, AKA problem kids, in isolation and expect our society not to suffer. I do want renovations in Shawnee. I do want renovations in Shawnee and other schools. I want new home for the Du Bois Academy, but don't merge black and poor schools. It's inequitable and continues the racist cycle JCPS pledged to oppose with the formation of my committee, Racial Equity Committee. Black lives do matter, and I hope you all agree.
Thank you, Mr. Rashad. Our next speaker is David Horton, and after Mr. Horton, our next speaker is Terry White. David Horton. David Horton. David Horton. Our next speaker is Terry White. Terry White. Terry White. Our next speaker is Brent McKim. Welcome, Mr. McKim.
Thank you, Board Chair Porter and members of the board, Superintendent Polio. On behalf of, I am the president of the Jefferson County Teachers Association. I'm Brent McKim and a high school science teacher in the district. Speaking on behalf of our JCTA Board of Directors, I mainly wanted to express on behalf of our association how important we believe it is to use the racial equity impact analysis tools that have been developed as part of our racial equity racial equity action plan to evaluate each aspect of the decisions we make with regard to our facilities. That gives us an equity lens through which to look at these decisions, and we would like to recommend that ideally that information, that analysis, be shared with stakeholders for dialogue and feedback before making decisions about the individual elements of the plan. That concludes my remarks, and I think I'm under my 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for being here this evening. Our next speaker is Chris Harmer. Chris Harmer. Welcome, Mr. Harmer.
Hello, I'm Chris Harmer, Chair of the Alliance to Reclaim Our Schools. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. AROS urges the JCPS Board to finish student assignment first before any construction plan decisions. Let's renovate for lasting quality and then bus both ways if necessary to balance capacities and equities in our school. Shawnee work can and should go forward now. It is not new construction, it's renovation. In fact, it's reparations, as I've told you before, two decades overdue. 1,700 district empty seats district-wide at 3 levels, according to your January enrollment numbers. Redoing resides and enlarging clusters through revision of the student assignment plan would fill some of those empty seats that we're talking about consolidating right now. Both of these plans should be led and modified using the racial equity analysis protocol that Brent McKim just spoke about and Kumar did as well. to increase equity, including inequities around school-level diversity and non-voluntary busing. That hasn't been done, simply hasn't been done yet. The revision developing now in the Student Assignment Advisory Committee is focused on equity as a major principle. We need to remake those cluster zones and satellite resides and bus both ways to reduce and eliminate the number of schools with very high poverty percentages of, students living in poverty and students of color. Research shows that they negatively affect academic outcomes for low-income students. If that rearrangement were done first, the facility plans really might help. Right now, not so much. Look at the proposed consolidation of Roosevelt, Perry, and Wheatley. Yes, it would reduce costs, but by reducing net school size and total seats, those seats, reductions in seats would lock in a poverty rate of 95% in the new school. Do the student assignment first and get rid of that problem. The justification for the East End Middle School is even more troubling through an equity lens based on current optimal capacity that management presented to you in January. There are 4,000 empty middle school seats district-wide, primarily in the South and West. How can we spend $30 million of taxpayer money on a new school with that much excess capacity? The existing East End middle schools have high diversity indices right near the top of the acceptable range. This new school would be in a white middle class area and possibly have a similarly high or possibly out of range diversity index because of the incredible long bus ride from most neighborhoods of color. Can't we consider rearranging these boundaries and busing some students east at least part of the way? If not, we will further increase the inequity of the already disproportionate busing load that falls on these students. You can still vote to build and merge these schools in less than a year. You have a major project ready to start at Shawnee, one of comparable value already in process at Manual. Please work.
Thank you, Mr. Harmer.
And forward. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Aaron Zimmerman. Aaron Zimmerman. Welcome, Ms. Zimmerman.
Hello. I am a parent of 3 children at Gilmore Lane Elementary. I am also the PTA president there. And I wanted to speak to you tonight on behalf of the parents and the children at Gilmore Lane. If you vote to approve the facilities plan, you're voting to close Gilmore Lane at the end of this school year. We do not see this as an opportunity to get a new shiny school. We see this as disappointing proof that the board doesn't care about our children. All we've been asking for since January was to keep Gilmore Lane open until the new school is built. We're not opposed to a new school. We're just opposed to not having the same opportunities that the other schools get. Indian Trail is allowed to stay open until their new school is built. We just wanted that same opportunity. If you approve this tonight, just know you're disappointing and saddening hundreds of children and their families. I implore you as board members to come to Gilmore Lane and tell the children yourselves that you're closing their school and tearing them apart from their friends. We're discouraged and frustrated that our elected board members don't care about the children at Gilmore Lane. We know this to be true because if you did care, you would simply keep Gilmore Lane open until the new school is built. We don't think we've been asking for that much. In conclusion, just know that you've disappointed and dissatisfied everyone at Gilmore Lane. Our trust in the board is broken and our hearts are as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Embry, for being here this evening. Our next speaker is Gay Adelman. Gay Adelman. Gay Adelman. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see her.
Good evening, dear JCPS. Since in 2017, as you know, charter school legislation was passed but not funded. Sensing a chill in the air regarding charters and test marketing in other states that demonstrated the public disdain of vouchers existed, the ALEC legislators were given a new task: to pass scholarship tax credits, providing the opportunity for their investors to siphon money from the vast public school coffers by laundering them directly to private schools. No need to even stop in the general fund basket. This isn't their first rodeo. In fact, charters, vouchers, scholarships, and myriad other hedge fund darling investments have been the law of the land in 43 other states, so they know how to penetrate a market. And once they're in, they can have their way with everything they want. We know this. We've heard from allies in Indiana, Tennessee, Florida, Arizona, California, West Virginia, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Iowa, Washington. The list goes on and on. They tell us, whatever you do not let them in. It's much harder to get them out once you have them. Here in Kentucky, we've seen the writing on the wall. We don't have to use our imagination to figure out what they're up to. I know you see it. It's part of the reason we elected you. We've literally managed to keep them at bay. Teachers are fighting to keep them at bay this very moment in Frankfort. We can do this. And these aren't just Kentucky teachers, these are your teachers. These are JCPS teachers fighting for our schools in Frankfort. School closures and mergers and reduction of local control, SB 250, which we're very disappointed that had some of your endorsements. This is all part of the maneuvers to take over our schools. This had David Jones, who we unelected, behind it. It had Scala and Cosby behind it. We are at a chapter, these are all from a chapter in the playbook that makes room for charters, as is ending busing and choice, not to mention high-stakes test scores, which private schools don't have to take, and they're used to label our schools as failing. We have an inequitable student assignment plan that leads to achievement gaps, behavioral challenges, and feeds the pipeline to prison. You showed us these dots yourself at the last work session. The more they can make public schools plain vanilla, the easier it will be to sell charters to those who can afford them, not with tuition, but with social capital, status, and privilege. As are any of the items from the audit, could have resulted in a disingenuous audit result, leading to a dissolution of your powers. Wayne Lewis will control the board. Voila, you know that you now have your funding mechanism without having to wait for Frankfurt. In order to stop this agenda in its tracks, we must outmaneuver them. One way to do this is addressing the inequities in student assignment instead of kicking the can down the road. Fayette is not a comparison. They don't have a district of choice. You've got a district set up based on a manipulated enrollment number. We have to put student assignment ahead of facilities because we may be shifting seats. We need the freedom to shift our seats and make a more equitable student assignment plan. Just wait 3 months. If you pass this building new schools out east and closing other facilities based on current enrollment numbers that have been manufactured by a district that has the best intentions, but as a plan we see is clearly not working, you are locking in an inequitable plan for our most vulnerable students.
I'm sorry, but
Thank you.
we are trying to stick to 3 minutes. Our next speaker is Anastasia Kaufman. Anastasia Kaufman, welcome, Ms. Kaufman.
Do I push this button?
It's on.
Oh,
already.
perfect. Wonderful. Hello. Thank you so much for letting me speak to you today. My name is Anastasia Kaufman. I am in District 2, so Dr. Kolb, I'm one of your folks. I am also here today as a representative from the Jefferson County chapter of the Kentuckians for the Commonwealth. So I listened to Superintendent Polio, your very enthusiastic discussion about the potential for building new schools, and I understand and I'm sympathetic to the desire to build new facilities to really give kids the best opportunity. And I will say I absolutely support the renovations proposed in Shawnee, long overdue. We absolutely should be doing those. But one of the things that we saw in that presentation is that the schools that we build today will be around for decades. And so it's up to us to make sure that we're doing the right thing and we're not jumping and saying, okay, this is the right thing, we need to do it this way, let's go. The current proposal adds up to divesting from West and South Louisville while investing in Eastern Louisville. It is literally structural racism and classism. Like, that is what it is. And the fact that it has not gone through the racial equity analysis program is deeply disturbing and deeply troubling, that we have not apparently taken the slightest look at what this does from a racial equity standpoint. So I absolutely call on the school board to just wait a few months, let us look at the student assignment plan, which I do believe is actually going through the racial equity analysis plan, so that will at least have some perspective from a racial equity lens. And say, okay, well, we certainly can't assign kids to schools that we've already decided to close. Let's look at the student assignment plan first. Let's figure out what the right thing to do is for our kids, for our students. And then let's figure out what the facilities plan that will be around for decades to come is based on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here this evening. Our next speaker is Nancy DeMartra. Ms. DeMartra, welcome. Thank you for being here this evening.
School board members, superintendent.
The button right in.
Okay.
One more time. There you go.
Thank
School
you.
board members, Superintendent Polio, and everyone here. I am concerned about our schools, and I want to share some things with you. We must together make this school district the best district in this state. There are people who want the DSEG plan stopped, and that's why I'm here tonight, because I want to say to all of you, we must keep the DSEG plan. We must keep all of our children having an equitable opportunity. We must make sure all of our schools, all of our teachers have the same opportunities. And we cannot let people in Frankfurt, people in this community, and others tell us that we need to go backwards. And I want to share something with you. When I was young, I attended a country school, a Rosenwald school. We had no regular school buses, although the district had school buses. We rode in a vehicle that had no seats, it had no seat belts, it had no windows. We also, each May, would hear a knock at the door, and there would be a person from the district there bringing boxes of dirty, old, tattered books that were being cast off for the African American schools. Now, there are things that happen that cause us to go back, and I'm asking you not to do anything that causes this school district to go back. We need to make sure that all children have an opportunity. We need to figure out what we can do that will cause all children to be able to read, for all children to be able to do math. And we can do it together. So I want to thank you, and I want to urge you to stay on the case.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall, for being here this evening. I think that I have skipped Ali Embry. Is Ali Embry here this evening? My apologies. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me tonight. I'd like to start off with, I'm also a parent from Gilmore Lane Elementary. I attended there as a student also for my whole elementary career. My daughter now goes there. Now, Mr. Polio, you came to our school in January, February, I guess it was, and you showed us these pictures, or you all sat at our tables and asked us questions. We were never given answers to our questions at all, period. I had someone call me about one specific question that I asked, but our teachers' questions have not been answered. Our students' questions, so on and so forth. Last board meeting, I did announce and address that there has not been a paper sent home to our school, to our parents about this proposal, that it could happen, that it could be voted on. We still have yet to receive a form. You've had a whole month to just do that simple thing that we've asked. I feel spoken, but I don't feel heard. And I'm going to go ahead and put this on behalf of all the teachers, staff, students, parents, community of Gilmore Lane Elementary. We feel very defeated. We feel like you went behind of our backs still, because, like I said, no answers. We have no answers. If this vote goes through, our students, we have no clue where our students will go next year. Someone from the student assignment will contact us each individually. What sense does that make? I thought about addressing a proposal for you all to bring Indian Trail students to us. We'll take care of them. We have a renovated building. We have a brand new playground. How much money would it take for you all to renovate that building or tear that building down or renovate our building for Liberty and move our playground if that's what you're wanting to do? And I will address again that please do not touch the Hooper Memorial. We lost our 2 students, Avery and Airden Hooper. They lived in our community of Linview. That memorial doesn't need to move. If our students of Gilmore are not going to go to Indian Trail next year, then neither does the memorial. I just think it's very inequitable. It's very unfair. And there's just been some lies. Our board member, Corey Shull, told us that Du Bois Academy had nothing to do with Gilmore, when now all of a sudden you're proposing that Du Bois go to Liberty so Liberty can come to us. So our own board member is still trying to push 300 students out of a school building in a couple months. Just please take consideration and time and thought into how much stress, and it doesn't need to continue. Thank you.
Thank you for being here this evening. Our next speaker is Caitlin Druck. Caitlin, welcome and thank you for being here this evening.
Hi, I am a current student at Pleasure Ridge Park High School. You may have seen me speak last week to the Senate Assembly. I will be a high school student for another year and 3 months, but my sister Crystal and her friends will be high school students for 4 years, and my best friend's little brothers will be a student in JCPS for 12. The idea that they may not have the opportunities that I have had and that my friends have had because of being forced to be bused to another school or being forced out of the place they have found to be home terrifies me. These things that we need as students and as school communities cannot be seen from another building. And I have not seen anyone on this board in my school ever. There are things that we need to decide that cannot be decided by an outside force. We at PRP and Butler, Doss, Valley, Western, Fern Creek, Iroquois, Atherton, Ballard, Wagner, Mail, Manual, and all the rest of us have so many unique opportunities for students to specifically cater to what they want to do in their careers and in their lives. We need to be able to see what needs funding, what people genuinely want to see in our schools. And student assignment does not allow that. You cannot see what we need from this room. We want support from our school board to doing what we need to do for students. If you would listen to the things that any student you meet says, that any teacher you see in a classroom says, and act upon what we say that we need, you could make this education system legendary. We, the friends of your children and of your family members, just want to be heard. And we trust you to not be another Donna Hargens.
Our next speaker, thank you, Ms. Druck. Our next speaker is Janice Pullen. Janice Pullen. Welcome, Ms. Pullen.
Good evening. Thank you. I left Louisville in '78. I graduated from high school at Shawnee, so I'm grateful that Shawnee is going to be part of a renovation process. I left to go to the military. When I returned home, I discovered that my elementary school had been torn down, and it was being replaced as a fire department. Every time that I go past that corner, I see that emptiness. I feel that loss of that youth that I had. And then I go into the areas like Highlands and St. Matthews, and I see all the historical things, the things they've had for 10, 20, 30, 40 plus years. And it breaks my heart to hear that these schools that are still left won't be. And I ask you to consider the legacy, if any, is left within the west end of Louisville. Be considered for these families. It matters. A lot of these parents, they're single parents. They're trying their best to get out to these schools, but it's difficult. They don't have that money. They don't have that time. They don't have the flexibility in their schedule to make that stuff happen. Help them help themselves. And that's all I ask of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pullen. We are now moving to our speakers on non-agenda items, and the first speaker is Mary Barnes, and she will speak on the school resource officers. Mary Barnes. Mary Barnes. Our next speaker is Kalia Britt. Kalia Britt. She will speak on armed school resource officers in JCPS. Kalia. Our next speaker is Alana Florence, who will speak about armed school resource officers in JCPS. Alana Florence. Alana. Our next speaker is Tatiana Hill, who will speak about armed school resource officers in JCPS. Tatiana. Okay, just want to note that the last three speakers that I called are listed as students, so I did call their names multiple times, and they are welcome to come back to speak to the board at another time. Our last speaker for the evening is William Mansfield. Mr. Mansfield will speak to us on the racial equity policy and SBDM racial bias. Welcome, Mr. Mansfield.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Superintendent Polio, and distinguished members of this board. I'm presenting to you this evening some challenges that I have, and after talking with several parents and also educators within this body, have come to some conclusions. And those conclusions are that based on the policies that have been implemented and based on the facility assignments that have been proposed this evening, that we have gone back to a place to where I thought this district would never go back to. In 1955, the Brown versus Board of Education was brought into law to be the law of the land. Many of the practices that are currently being administrated throughout this entire school district fall outside the guidelines of the civil rights of many minority students throughout this entire district. So what I have done as a result of that is I have prepared a formal complaint with the U.S. Department of Education and CC'd this to the U.S. Department of Justice to take action against this board and this district as it relates to racial biases and inequities regarding its hiring policies and regarding its statutes as it relates to the KRS statutes of this Commonwealth. So with that will be accompanied a petition with multiple parents as well as administrators who will accompany this. And I will hand deliver this to Washington, D.C. at the end of this month. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mansfield, for being here this evening. That completes our speakers. I do want to make sure that I did not skip Mary Barnes, because I had skipped one other speaker. Ms. Barnes? Mary Barnes. Okay, so that completes our speakers for this evening. Thank you very much, everyone. Moving on with the agenda. The next item on our agenda is the recommendation for approval to adopt district facilities transformation. Dr. Polio.
Thank you, Chair Porter and board members, and I'll bring up our team that will be presenting, obviously, as you saw in the superintendent report. We have had multiple meetings where we have discussed this, and so we are bringing to you a plan, as has been noted with you from our previous board meeting, or excuse me, work session. We are tabling the alternative school plan for further discussion and assignment to Du Bois. But I will turn it over to Dr. Razor and Dr. Horton to cover, once again, a brief rundown of the plan.
Good evening. So right off the bat, just to review what is being recommended tonight for approval of this initiative is undertaking massive renovations at the Academy of Shawnee, relocating Liberty High School to the Gilmore Lane site, the closing of Gilmore Lane Elementary School, the construction of 3 new elementary schools, one in the Newburgh area, the other in the South Dixie Highway area, and then the third in the West Broadway area, and then the construction of a new middle school in the East End. Then a next step after that will be a further review, as Dr. Polio said, of the alternative school plan and the permanent location of the Du Bois Academy, and those recommendations will be coming at subsequent meetings. You know, if we talk about what we're doing at the Academy of Shawnee, as Dr. Polio stated earlier, we are basically creating a new school in a flagship structure that we have. We want to maintain our architectural integrity, want to keep the beauty of the building, but we want to bring a 20th century building into the 21st century and create those 21st century learning spaces and make sure that it has the technology and the career and technical education pathways that students deserve in a 21st century building. I've already sort of overviewed the elementary school proposals, just that our proposal is that we would look to combine on West Broadway the Roosevelt Perry and Wheatley schools, on South Dixie, Watson Lane, and Wilkerson Elementaries, and in the Newburgh area, Indian Trail and Gilmore Lane. And the real purpose of this is so we can have first-class facilities. 5 of the schools that are listed up there are all with end-of-life systems, and we would be forced to renovate all 5 of those, and those would be minimal renovations based upon the funding that we have. By consolidating resources, we're able to build 3 state-of-the-art, first-class learning environments for our students. And also what we're doing is we're making an investment in all parts of the county. Again, Liberty would be relocated to the Gilmore Lane site. And once again, a summary of what is being proposed above.
A couple of things that I did want to clarify. You got information. If that is passed, we will begin with Gilmore Lane students immediately, starting tomorrow, which we will meet with every family personally, offer them any school within the cluster. As we have open seats in all of the clusters, we will also begin to work with staff to make sure that they have their choices, 10 choices of schools that they can work towards or request for transfer. Our new schools, as you know, will be at least 18 to 24 months before we would move into those new facilities. Those facilities would be going to our local planning commission, which would be then labeled as transitional and come back to you for that approval at a subsequent board meeting. So that is our plan, as we've talked about many times. We will take your questions or comments at this time.
Questions or comments? Ms. Duncan.
Just a clarification on Liberty to Gilmore Lane. We're really not deciding that particular thing. We're just deciding if Gilmore Lane's going to be a transitional school, aren't we? I mean, we're not really ready to do all of
The proposal is that Liberty would go to Gilmore Lane.
Okay, that's the definite proposal.
Yes.
Other comments? Board Member Geese.
Yes. Thank you, Chairwoman Porter. Appreciate it. I would like to begin this evening by thanking every member of the community that joins us this evening. I'm a big believer in the idea of community input, of public voice, and my key virtue, and the virtue that I hope guides me in all that I do, is civility in government. And so with that, I have a few points that I would like to make. Chairwoman Porter has been gracious enough to provide me the opportunity to do so. I hope to meet your 3-minute requirement. I'm going to try my best. This morning, as many of you know, or perhaps do not know, I am an 8th grade United States history and government teacher. And this morning, the lesson centered around the Constitutional Convention. How did our founding fathers, many of them not liking one another, plenty of controversial decisions to make, how did they meet together for 3 months in Philadelphia in a sweltering hot room and come to the compromises that founded the constitutional order of the United States? And so my warm-up or bell ringer question this morning was this: what are some good leadership skills we might use when discussing controversial issues? Something they had to do then, something we're having to do now. And my students told me these 3 things. They said, Mr. Geese, you've got to know the facts. You've got to know what the facts of the case are, and you've got to remove all emotion from those facts. And I said, good. They said, you've got to listen to people. Even if you disagree with them, you've got to listen to them and not just nod your head and say, but let their thoughts enter your head and think about it. And lastly, they said, Mr. Geese, you've got to respect everybody, even people who you disagree with. And so I give each person in this room my most heartfelt respect, and I pray that with what I will share with you, you will engage with that as well. I'd appreciate it very, very much. So with that, I begin with the first point that my students gave me this morning, and those are the facts. You will find that the majority of District 4's elementary schools are in my district, south end of Louisville, District number 4, are near or full capacity with a few outliers. 15 out of 19 schools are at or near capacity. In addition, the majority of District 4's elementary schools are 50 or more years old, 11 of the 19. Most schools show a dated history of capital improvements. Most capital improvements are approximately 10 or more years old, with 4 exceptions. So those are the facts of this particular issue. The next thing they said is, Mr. Geese, you've got to listen. I've had the opportunity to engage with many stakeholders. I've had the opportunity to go to schools. I've had the opportunity to go to neighborhood association meetings. I've had the opportunity to meet with elected representatives of Louisville Metro Council and several other government organizations. And if I met with you, I sincerely thank you for your time. This is what my community is telling me. First and foremost, from the Southwest Dream Team and the South Louisville Business Association along the Dixie Highway Corridor, this is what they have to say. The board members of the Southwest Dream Team stand in strong support of the proposed construction of a new elementary school in South Louisville on the grounds of Wilkerson Elementary. We believe this school would be a beneficial addition to the JCPS district and would meet the needs of the community it serves. District 4, which encompasses Dixie Highway and the surrounding area, has a long history of being neglected, and we recognize the urgent need for necessary changes to be made for future generations of South and Southwest Louisville. We urge the school board to consider the demands of this developing region and to take precautions to meet the growing needs of this changing community. In addition to that, this last Friday, I received in my board packet that's delivered to my home every Friday evening a card from Watson Lane Elementary, and I will read you verbatim what the card says. It says, Board Member Geese, thank you for your support and empathy for our community. We are relieved to have a concerned and attentive representative. We look forward to our continued partnership for student success, Watson Lane Elementary, knowing full well the sacrifice that that community will have to make for a new school to be built a 10-minute drive away on South Dixie Highway. Lastly, I received a letter from the president of the Louisville YMCA and the chairwoman of the YMCA that says this.
This letter of intent confirms the commitment of the YMCA of Greater Louisville to enter into a good faith dialogue and due diligence in exploring the potential of two facility service collaborations. West Louisville and the South Dixie Highway corridor would be the target geographical areas, both of which have substantial need for academic and health services that might be addressed. What this plan would do, under the guidance of Dr. Polio, is essentially establish a Norton Commons Elementary on South Dixie Highway with a brand new elementary school and YMCA combination. I think that's good for my community. Lastly, I'd like to draw attention back to the listen and respect. Had the opportunity to meet with members of the Valley Village Neighborhood Association on January the 21st at Crossroads Church on South Dixie Highway. Understandably, they were concerned, and I was honored to receive that invitation and attend that meeting. Overwhelmingly, they were concerned about property values. They were concerned about the idea of potentially having a vacant building in their neighborhood. And those are concerns that I can identify with as a citizen of South Louisville and a lifelong citizen of that part of the city as well. So I got to thanking, and then I received an invitation from Louisville Metro Councilwoman Cindy Fowler. Cindy Fowler says, and I quote, "I'm happy to have this new school in my district." She's also happy to partner in collaboration to ensure that there will not be a vacant hole left in the Valley Village neighborhood. She is committed to the prospect of surveying that land for potential park use, or the city of Louisville potentially investigating the purchase of that property for a community center that would serve South Dixie Highway, which is in need of such of a community center. So having listened to the facts, having listened intently and done my homework, having, I believe, shown respect to my community, and I pray will receive your respect in the audience as well, I felt as if, as a lifelong resident of the south end of Louisville, I can vote yes to bring a new elementary school to South Dixie Highway. I appreciate your concern, and I look forward to a partnership for the school's success in the future should this pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Geese. Are there other comments from board members? Board Member Craig?
Dr. Polio, would you mind just going through the numbers with us one more time? How much money we're spending in each of the neighborhoods throughout the city?
Yes, and correct me if I'm wrong. Once again, these are estimates as we begin to go through the process. Right. So, you know, we are looking at the whole project being $120 to $130 million. And so estimates are about $65 million in West Louisville, about $20 million in South Louisville, and then $30 to $40 million on the middle school in East Louisville.
So it's about 75% of the money that we're about to spend is going to be spent in traditionally poor.
And excuse me, I left one out.
Yeah,
I apologize. I went through them. And at $20 million in the Newburgh area. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And we've talked about this several times. I can't hear those numbers and think that the plan is inequitable, that we're not serving the poorest of our communities by making this gigantic investment in them. So when I hear the arguments, and I've heard them, I've talked to a lot of different people, that this is inequitable, given the amount of money that we're going to spend in those communities, I don't find that argument persuasive. I just don't.
And can I also say, you know, I believe this is the first step, and as I said before, but I think we will continue to invest in these communities.
Right.
I'm excited, very excited, meeting with Steve Tarver at the Y as to what this partnership will do for both the South Louisville School and the West End School, where kids will have access in their elementary schools to all the services that a Y offers, including the staffs, pools, gyms, you know, health, all kinds of opportunities that I think will be invaluable to the school itself.
The next point, I think there's confusion on this point. Are we voting tonight to close the other 5 elementary schools that are targeted for merger? Are we voting to close those schools tonight? We're not, are we?
That is, no, we are not. We are voting to, which is right up behind you here, construct 3 new elementaries. The move to transitional will come back to you after it goes to the LPC.
And when do you anticipate that coming back to us?
Mike?
Our LPC meeting is scheduled for next Tuesday evening, and at which time the LPC approves the amendment that we're going to present to them. That would then come to the board to be sent to the Kentucky Department of Education. That would come back to us. So it would be over the summer would be my best estimate for when that would take place, when we would vote on the final amendment to the district facilities plan. Even an amendment does take 2 passes. So the local planning committee votes twice upon it, the board votes on it also, and then the Kentucky Board of Education gives final approval.
And we're anticipating our student assignment review work to be completed this summer, correct?
That's correct.
So we're not going to make the decision to close these schools before the student assignment work is done. Is that right?
That's correct.
So we're moving forward with the construction of these fantastic new spaces while there's still a discussion about these other items ongoing, right?
Correct.
All right. And I hear confusion about that in the community, and I just wanted to make that crystal clear. These facilities, we need them. I spent Saturday afternoon in Norton Commons Elementary for my son's academic team competition. It's a beautiful space, and I think that every community in this city deserves one. So I'm thankful for the opportunity to vote for this. I think it's the right thing for the district.
Thank you.
Other comments from board members? Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Chair Porter. A couple questions. Dr. Razor, you might be able to answer this. Typically, what is the lifespan of a school?
It all depends. The 5 schools that we're talking about, or 6 that we're talking about combining, we've renovated Gilmore Lane a few years back, but you're looking at schools that were built during the baby boom that maybe didn't have an anticipated life of 30 or 40 years that we've had to do substantial work on to keep in what we would consider adequate condition for our students. If you look at a building like the Academy at Shawnee, that building was built for hundreds of years. Buildings were built different pre-World War II, and that is a flagship building within our district. So that number does fluctuate just depending on the construction of the building.
And how old are all the schools that we're considering replacing, that are under consideration tonight? Do you have it? Are they all over
Yes,
lifespan?
they're all beyond that. That's why we have declared them end of life buildings.
When we look at the YMCA partnership, based on what we've already experienced with Norton Commons, the YMCA partnership with some of these schools that are under consideration, will they have some of the same amenities that the current YMCA Norton Commons has, such as a pool and a shared gym?
Right now, that is the proposal. I know that the West End YMCA already has a gym that is comparable to the Norton Commons gym, where that gym's there first now. With Norton Commons, we built the gym. So if we did go with a shared use facility similar to that, the gym's already in place. In the conversations we've had, and I'm sure Dr. Polio could echo this, in the conversations we've had with the YMCA, they intend to mirror exactly, if not more, of what we have at Norton Commons.
And some of the children that go to these schools with the amenities such as the gym and a pool, especially a pool, we would theoretically be able to teach swimming to these kids?
Yes, Norton Commons elementary students get swimming.
I know that, for example, Coleridge Taylor does a swimming program because there's a pool across the street at Central High School. So, but you still have to walk outside for that one. So in the wintertime, that can be pretty challenging. Regarding Norton Commons, when we built that school, my understanding is that we did not pay what we would normally consider full price for that school because the land was donated to us, the utilities were already run there. So if you can think about this off the top of your head, do you have an idea of how much money we saved as a result of building that school because some of that all that infrastructure and land were basically gifted to us?
The land in Norton Commons that was gifted to us, a lot for a home in Norton Commons goes for anywhere from $70,000 to $125,000 probably. And if you think that we are on almost 10 acres there and a lot is maybe 1/10 of an acre, that land was substantial savings, but that would be why we'd be proposing similar moves with land we already have for these elementary schools. Also, we saved on the cost of a gym. Most elementary schools don't have gyms similar to the one at Norton Commons because the YMCA split that with us. The play fields are outfitted with things that the Y put in as far as backstops and things like that. Additionally, extra parking we didn't have to provide because many times our on times are the Y's off times. Mm-hmm. So that was also another synergy that we generated from that. So it's almost hard to put a number on some of the savings that we have because they're things we wouldn't have done if we were building a school and it didn't have that partnership.
I bring that up because of two reasons. One, I know that there's some criticism that the last school that we built within the last 10 years or so has been in the northeast part of the county, but I mention this because we got that school at a substantial discount because of the land that was gifted to us, the fact that, as I said, utilities are run, and as you said, our partnership with the YMCA, plus that being very innovative and a pilot of sorts of things that we can do in other places that we're trying to accomplish now with this decision. And also the fact that with this new, with the continued partnership with the Y, that there's still substantial savings that we're getting, even though we're not being gifted the land like we were over at Norton Commons. Regarding Norton Commons, when we look at the, I forgot to ask, the availability of the pool, is the CEP program going to be offered at these schools too? Because I know YMCA typically runs CEP programs.
It's very preliminary, but I would assume so.
I would think so too. So, I'm curious about that for those parents that have jobs that need childcare after work. Not all of our schools have a continuing education program for our children, but it seems that the ones that we're proposing with the Y would have that as an option for parents who do send their kids there. And my understanding is that since we're looking at end-of-life schools, that regardless of student assignment decisions, we're going to have to replace these schools in any way, right? Am I correct on that assumption?
I think several of these schools are at the point we would have to start over.
Okay. All right. So I just wanted to get those questions out there because it seems to me that there's substantial savings to be had here, plus I know that during my time on the board, I've consistently asked for buildings to be built. As I mentioned before, we have 150 plus buildings throughout our district. If we start now building even just one building every single year, it'll still take us 150 years before we get to every building, and that's 3 times longer than the typical lifespan of these buildings. So, I think this is a good plan going forward. I think it does touch on all parts of the district. And throughout the county, and I think that there's a lot to be had here. I do want to just add one employee to do one thing, and regarding the design of these schools, and that's be bold and innovative. Norton Commons is a very nice facility, but I think, just from my own opinion, that we could have done more, especially when I take a look at what the library has done with some of its buildings. To be able to be more environmentally efficient, which I know Norton Commons has geothermal heating, but solar panels, some shading, things of that nature I've seen in other school districts such as Cambridge or San Antonio or Austin. I would like to see us, do that with innovative furniture options, which Dr. Polio has mentioned in other schools. So when you do that, I personally, as a board member, would like to see those plans. I think last time we got the approval and then we saw it again until it opened. I would like to be brought in a little bit more on that decision-making process, but I do encourage you to be bold and innovative. Thank you.
Okay, I have several things to say about District 1, being the board member for District 1 and having lived there my life. And for those that stand across the street and evaluate District 1 without ever stepping a foot in our schools, it is hurtful to hear. And as you talk about telling us to come into schools and to visit what's going on, I do that. You can check with my schools. But before I did this, I worked for this district for 39 years. So to be clear, I'm here for education. God puts us places for a reason, and I am here for a reason to speak for my district, and I will do that. And I will say it is despicable that we have the facilities that we have in District 1. And that we have had those facilities for such a period of time. It is not acceptable. And it's not about a new school building. It's about providing quality education for the students no matter where they are. So I want to speak to that, and I will hold us to that as long as I'm sitting in this chair. But as it pertains to facilities, I ask you not only to ride by, but to step in and to see what we don't have in District 1. And I applaud Dr. Polio and the district for stepping up after 25 plus years and making the Academy at Shawnee whole. The only high school in Louisville, Jefferson County where you cannot walk on every floor. The only high school in Jefferson County that will never be acceptable in any other part of town and in any other city for the most part. So I have some data to share. And again, I live in West Louisville. My daughter and I lived in West Louisville. My daughter went to public school. I taught in Jefferson County. I worked in Jefferson County for 39 years. So I have experience all over this county almost. I have been from Male High School to Fairdale Vocational School to Thomas Jefferson Middle School. I'm not even going to go through the list because it's way too long. But I have experience and I know what schools can look like, and I know what we have been asked to accept. My district will not accept this any longer. I am voted and sitting in this chair to speak for my district, and that is what I am doing tonight. So in looking at the data for 2016-17, in District 1, there are 17,228 students at that time. In 2016-17, 88.7% of the students are on free and reduced lunch. That's 2016-17. In 2018 and 19, the total number of students in the district that reside in the district are 16,182. 7,782 of those students attend school in District 1. Altogether, 17,607 students attend District 1 schools in 2018-19. 9,825 students do not reside in District 1. So there are people that don't mind getting on the bus and riding to District 1 because it's their decision to do so. But I want to call out the fact, the number of free and reduced students in District 1. As you talk about fixing it, it didn't get messed up overnight and it won't get fixed overnight. But I have called it out for every year that I have been on the board, particularly in my elementary schools. I'm not talking about student assignment. I'm talking about the right to buildings and structures like everybody else has. So as one of the things that has been discussed with me is I am forgetting the history. I absolutely am not. This is the month of the woman. Phyllis Wheatley will continue to exist. She is not going anywhere. That name is not going anywhere. The name of William Perry is not going anywhere. That's an African-American man that lived in Jefferson County. I know the history. Many of you know the history. I think you know it. Look it up for those of us that have lived here all this time. So as we talk about who's going to the school, somebody said, so you're building those schools so the kids will ride across town to be in the school. The first right of refusal to the school will go to the students that are currently in the buildings. They have the first right to walk in the door. They have the first right to walk in the door. As we talk about things that we want for our students, we keep using the word innovation. And I have asked to understand what that is. What does that look like? Not only will we understand what it is and what it looks like, we're going to understand what it costs before I vote on it, because I do not want the schools having to beg for money. We want the best for our students, so we will not only build the building. Someone said to me, so you're going to build those new buildings and you're going to put those low-performing kids in there. Is that what you're about? It's not what I'm about, and it should not be what anybody's about. So don't question why I'm here. So we will put resources to the schools. We will make sure children have everything that they need to be successful. The other thing that I want to call out tonight that we are not voting for is Dr. Horton, Barbara Dempsey, and I attended a group meeting at Portland, at the table. The Portland community is very concerned about the time on the bus, getting to somewhere other than anywhere in District 1 to a middle school. We're not voting for that tonight. I am not confused. I am speaking for the Portland residents. They deserve better. And so as we talk about the next topic, student assignment, we need to look at that. I stand behind the fact that our students deserve everything that everybody else has gotten over time. And I've been around a long time, so I've got the history. I do not hesitate to say it is our time in District 1. That's all I have to say. Any other comments from the board? Board Member Schul.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I want to just acknowledge the fact that I am in a bit of a tight space as it relates to this facilities proposal, but I've done my best to walk every school that is affected by this proposal. I've walked Gilmore Lane several times. I've walked Indian Trail several times. If you don't feel that Indian Trail needs a new school, please go. It is not the type of space that we want to send our children. In Newburgh, there has not been a new elementary school built in over 45 years. It's totally unacceptable. I want to be sure that we set the record straight that the proposal that we are scheduled to take a vote on tonight, the Du Bois School is not the cause of the proposal. The Du Bois School is a part of the conversation concerning this proposal. And we don't need to conflate the two. We also don't need to conflate matters of new school buildings counteracting the student assignment plan. I think that is a false tension. So I just want to go on record as saying that truly all students matter, and as the board, we've got to be good stewards of space, good stewards of resources, so that we can continue to do education in the best way for all students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, is there a motion to adopt the District Facilities Transformation Initiative? Board Member Geese, seconded by Board Member Craig. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Dr. Horton and Dr. Razor and Dr. Polio, very much. We're now moving on to the consent calendar. I'm sorry, information items, there are none. So now we're moving on to the consent calendar. On the consent calendar, one item is to be pulled down. That's item T, which is the revision of board policy 8.130, gifted and talented students, the first reading, and that is to be pulled down by Board Member Brady and Board Member Duncan. At this point, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar except item T? Board Member Geese, seconded by Board Member Kolb. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. So at this time, we will entertain discussion on Board Policy 8.132, Gifted and Talented Students, the first reading of this. Questions? Questions, Ms. Duncan?
I just had a few things, kind of almost procedural things I'd like to have clarified on this. One of the things that we looked at our retreat was we set, or we were looking at goals for participation in GATE. And as I saw that goal, it was 55% minority participation in GATE. And I just need a clarification. We have minority students who are also white students. Is that not the case? Because I don't think minority means all, that we expect 55% African American in GATE. I think we need a clarification though on what we mean by minority, because I want to be sure we're inclusive of everybody who might fall into that.
I think Dr. Dossett can give us specifics on that.
Yes, when we were setting our goals, and this pertains to the racial equity plan at the district level, we set a goal around 55%, and what we meant by that was students of color, so which represents our district population as well. So that would be African American students as well as Latino and other racial minority groups.
Okay, but do we have students who are white students who fall into that category of minority? Or do we enter them that way? I mean, just like some of our students that come from other countries, they're not all students of color that come from other countries, are they?
No, they're not. They might be considered English language learners, perhaps, but they wouldn't, if they're white, they wouldn't be considered students of color.
But we would also be inclusive of them as wanting to be identified for GATE services. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think our goal is to try to expand our gifted and talented population and the services that we provide to students. So.
Okay, I just felt like when we focus on minority, sometimes we skip the fact that there are also students that don't fall into being a student of color, but we would want to include in this particular expansion.
Yes, again, and I think our policy that we're moving forward is focused on expanding services to more students than we currently serve.
Alrighty, and one of the things that needs to be clarified too is just because you are identified as GATE or in GATE, does that mean you will be exposed to advanced academic study?
So yes, but there are different. Remember that there are 5 different ways that we should be identifying students for gifted services. So it depends on what their area is, where they're identified, and then so that determines what kinds of services they would receive.
But they are
critical to note every student that is a gifted and talented student will have access to that type of instruction and support.
Well, I'm saying if a student is not identified, if a student is identified with leadership potential, for instance, does that mean that that student will then also be put into academic challenge, the academic portion of GATE, or will that be a separate?
Well, I think it's important to remember in the policy there's a whole list of ways that schools can address gifted and talented support. Our goal will be to, yes, get them in that classroom and that support, but any of those ways in which a school can address that are options for the school. So just completely expanding our view of this, not just being we put them in a one class and that's it, but you really expand the options and services that you provide to students.
Okay, now that leads me to my last one. Are we prepared to offer the special services in all 5 areas in all of our schools this way? How will we prepare to do that?
So we are working on that now with schools. We're supporting them as they'll be forming committees. That's actually, we need to try to wait until the policies pass, but we also need to move. So yes, we will. We have been working even behind the scenes for a long time, for several months, to think about what those different service models might look like, delivery models, and how we can make sure that we meet all of our students' needs.
Okay, well that's going to be interesting to see how everybody is able to plug into each child's gift or talent, and I look forward to hearing how we've done that too. I think that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Chair Porter. My comments are really more of a request on a couple items. First of all, thank you for taking the time to answer my many questions about this policy revision. I wanted to make sure that the goal here was in fact to widen our definition of who might fall into gifted and talented to be able to be more inclusive rather than exclusive. But one of the concerns I had originally was on the second paragraph. There was a phrase that we had that's new where it says, which talks about for children who display characteristics, and then it says and behaviors of a high potential learner. The behaviors part was a little disconcerting to me because I thought that might be a way to say, oh, well, if a child doesn't behave, then that might be, you know, we're looking for positive behaviors that would allow someone to be considered gifted and talented, not, you know, the fact that the child might be exhibiting gifted and talented characteristics, but then, oh, those behaviors might be getting in the way. And by getting your answer from this, like, no, it's actually more of the opposite interpretation of that, where we see behaviors that could be also be considered a gifted and talented characteristic. So, and I appreciate the clarification on that. I don't think that I am that, you know, dissimilar from other folks who might actually make that have that misunderstanding regarding that language. And my only request is if we can take a look at some way of being able to maybe clarify that a little bit to where it isn't so open to interpretation. That's my only request.
Sure, absolutely.
Does that take care of the questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve item T, which is the board policy? This is the first reading. I want to emphasize that revision of board policy 8.132, gifted and talented students. Is there a motion? Board Member Geese, seconded by Board Member Craig. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much for the explanation. We're now moving on to our tie bids. Vice Chair Cole.
Items number 47 and 68 on bid ID 7684 for musical instruments and supplies, and the item is awarded to Taylor Music Incorporated.
Thank you very much. Moving on to our board planning calendar. Any discussion on the calendar? And if there is no discussion, is there a motion to receive the planning calendar? Motion by Board Member Geese, second by Board Member Cope. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Are there any committee reports this evening? Ms. Duncan?
Just want to name the fact that the policy committee did meet and attempted to fine-tune and did fine-tune the language in this gifted and talented policy that we're considering tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other committee reports? Moving on to board reports this evening. Board reports. Ms. Duncan, Mr. Brady, and then Board Member Geese.
Would love to report that I had a chance to take part in the backpack defense experience with 5th grade at Fairdale Elementary, and I hope to do more. We worked for several hours listening to students and their backpack presentations, and I was completely amazed and blown away. I don't think they're 6th grade ready. I think they're college ready by the level of work that was presented to us. I mean, the ability to select quotes and relate those to themselves, and that ability to speak before 5 adults, 3 of whom were complete strangers, and the presentations, the PowerPoints that they presented that helped lead us through those presentations. The quality of the artifacts that they chose and how they used those and explained those to describe the success skills that they have picked up through the course of this experience. Their summary of and their actual defense of why they thought they were 6th grade ready. It was just amazing. And this was all done in, they're given a certain time limit that they had to operate in. It's about 10 to 15 minutes, but just absolutely amazing. And I really feel this focus is going to have a great impact on the learning that our students will be demonstrating when we do have a chance to go through testing again. But I look forward to my next experience and just encourage everybody to try and sign up for a panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan. Mr. Brady and then Mr. Geese.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to express my congratulations once more to Farmer Elementary School teacher Bethany Collins, who won the Excel Award, or was recipient of the Excel Award a few weeks ago. Just Dr. Polio and myself had a chance to go out there and present the award to her. And as always, it's a fantastic event, and she joins several of our other colleagues at Farmer as an Excel Award winner. So I just want to express that congratulations once more, and hopefully I'll be able to say this again the next time we meet for another school. So thank you.
Board Member Geese.
Thank you. Ms. Gilpin, if you could please display the image that I emailed to you earlier in the week, I would appreciate it. The image that you see on the screen behind me and in front of you was taken in October of 1950. And it is a photograph that hung on the wall of my late grandmother's home for several years. The photograph that you see in front of you is of my maternal great-grandparents, Ruby and Mitch Minton. And so you're probably wondering why I'm showing this to you this evening. I never had the opportunity to meet my great-grandfather Mitch, but I did have the opportunity to meet my great-grandmother Ruby. Ruby lived to the ripe old age of 98 years old. She passed away in 1998. She lived in the Yorktown Senior Apartments in the south end of Louisville. But when they came to Louisville, they settled in South Dixie Highway, which is the area where our new school will be built. I show this because I have fond memories of going to my great-grandmother's home, up to at least the second grade for me, and seeing her sign her name with an X, because she died illiterate, as did my great-grandfather in 1967, died illiterate, never knowing the joy of what it means to read a book, and never knowing the satisfaction that comes with signing your own name. But tonight her great-grandson voted to build a brand new elementary school in the south end of Louisville, where she settled in 1950 after the Kentucky Rock Asphalt Company went out of business in Edmonson County, Kentucky. So if anybody wants to talk to me about how public schools don't teach kids how to read, they taught me, the great-grandson of people who died illiterate. If anybody wants to talk to me about what a failure JCPS is, I urge you to look into the face of Ruby and Mitch Minton and look at my record. And I challenge anyone from here to Washington, D.C. to have that conversation with me. And so tonight, I dedicate that vote that passed unanimously to bring the first new elementary school to the south end of Louisville in literally decades to the memory of Ruby and Mitch Minton. May they smile down upon it, and may they enjoy from the seat of heaven the many opportunities that will give children in our community the right to read. Thank you all.
Thank you, Board Member Geese. Dr. Kolb.
Thanks, Ben. That was great. It was really special. I just want to say that tomorrow at Spalding University in the morning, there's a Restorative Practices Conference, second annual, and if you can make it, I encourage you to be there. If it's anything like last year's, you'll hear some really interesting stuff that'll blow you away. Any media that are still back there, if you want to come, that would be fantastic, because you'll hear some great stories from schools that are really honestly doing some cutting edge stuff in the nation in JCPS. And then last thing is on Thursday, District 8 Councilman Brandon Cohn and I are hosting an event at Highland Middle School. Brandon came up with the name Town and Gown for these events, but I don't really like it. But I haven't come up with anything better, so we're going with that. And it's a chance to introduce the community to Principal Burba at Highland, and also Brandon's been great about finding ways for JCPS and Metro government to try to work together in some really creative and interesting ways. So I'd like to thank him for that. And if you live in that area especially, I would encourage you to stop by and see us. Thank you.
Board Member Schul.
Thank you. I would like to just give a shout out to Lorante Offit, who is a student at Moore High School. I'm really, really proud of Lorante. He did his backpack defense 2 weeks ago, and he is a student who has struggled with many of the traumas and the behavioral challenges that we talk about so frequently, yet he successfully passed his backpack defense. He did an extraordinary job, and he's on his way to Bluegrass Technical College. And so we're really, really, really excited for Lorante, and he made not only his principal proud, his teachers proud, but the entire community, his family, they're rallying behind him. This has been a bright spot for them, and so I want to give him a shout out, and also to the teachers and the principals at Rangeland, Indian Trail, and Hartstern, who all had incredible Read Across America days last Friday. And also those three schools, their students did special events for African American Heritage Month, and I was able to attend some of those and was really just surprised and astounded at the brilliance of many of our Jefferson County Public School students. So I just wanted to give them a shout out.
Thank you. Anyone else? Very quickly, I would like to say that this was the opportunity to read to our students, and I had the pleasure of attending a reading activity at Wheatley Elementary and also Kennedy Montessori, where I had the deluxe pleasure of reading to the kindergarten students, or maybe I should say they had the deluxe pleasure of reading to me, because it was a group event, but it was very encouraging. So to say that I have been in District 1 and I have been in the District 1 schools for that activity. Also, last Friday, the Speed Museum had an amazing recognition program, because this is the month of the woman. I didn't make that up. It's printed somewhere. But I want to give a shout out to the Speed Museum, because in talking with Stephen Rowley, there are so many events that they are doing at Speed for our children, ongoing events all the time, and I don't think sometimes that we stop and thank people enough for their work. So I want to publicly thank the Speed Museum for the opportunities that they are providing for our students in JCPS. And on Saturday, I had an opportunity to attend Zeta sorority event, and I want to give a shout out to our own Renee Murphy, who was recognized at that event. So congratulations, Renee Murphy. I know we're not supposed to do that, but I'm not paying attention right now. So thank you for your work and your service to the community. Again, I don't think we say thank you enough for people that do the hard work. So I have done that, and I don't apologize for it. So that completes the board reports, I believe. And there are no additional persons requesting to address the board. There's no executive session needed. There is no additional action items. It is 8:53 p.m. Is there a motion to adjourn? Board Member Gee, seconded by Board Member Craig. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.